Welcome to another day of reading of the book Surcharged with Divine Love, written by Sukmani Aunty and published by Unistar Books Private Limited. Chapter 6 Guruji Blesses Our Room. One day the temple curtains got changed. The old ones were washed and ironed and kept aside. Just as we walked in, Guruji told one of the caretakers to put all the old curtains in our car, saying, "The curtains in Litlu's room need to be changed. The one near the dressing table is torn." My sister was always called Litlu by Guruji. He never used her real name. As much as we tried to recall, we could not remember any curtain to be torn or damaged in that room. He further added, "All three of you must sleep in the room with the new curtains." By all three, he meant my mother, sister, and me. We never understood why Guruji wanted us all to sleep in one room, but we had learned over these few days never to question him. When at night we reached home, the first thing we did was to check for a tear in our old curtains. Sure enough, as mentioned by Guruji, the curtain next to the dressing table had a slit. Since it was never fully drawn, we never noticed it. Guruji had never been to our house physically, but he seemed to know more about it than we did ourselves. We put up the curtains that very night and made arrangements to sleep together. Hardly 3 days had passed since we put up the curtains, and we all started noticing that they were getting unnaturally black and soiled. Everything they touched, windowsills or doors, started to turn black. We took them down, washed them, and put them up again. Hardly a few days would pass, and the same thing started to happen again. The curtains were a light grey and a pale pink spray of flowers, but by the end of a week one could hardly make out the pattern since they used to become so dirty. After having washed them a couple of times, we finally decided to ask Guruji about this strange phenomenon. "Guruji, why are the curtains turning black?" My mother finally took the courage to ask him. "I'm curing the negative influences of planets on all three of you. Since my temple curtains are charged with my energy, they are taking all the effect onto themselves," said Guruji. "Keep sleeping in the same room." We did as we were told, and for over a year the curtains kept getting black until one day we realized they weren't getting as black as they used to. Anyone who walked into our room would feel a change in vibrations. We had pictures of Guruji on every wall. I noticed many people loved to come and sit there and felt peaceful, while there were many others who could not step in and felt restless. Over the years, we have witnessed many of Guruji's blessings in this room. My mother and I went to a temple and saw beautiful idols of Lord Shiva made in clay. We could not resist buying one each. On coming back home, we placed these in our respective praying areas in the room. We would sit and say we would sit and say our prayers in front of the idols and would meditate on them. Soon we realized that the idols would become lifelike each time we concentrated on them. The eyes would open and shut, the skin on the face would twitch, and the chest would seem to rise and fall as if the idol was breathing. For many days, my mother and I saw the same things in our respective idols, but we kept it to ourselves and dared not tell each other. We would put it down to imagination or something or the other, but refused to believe what we were seeing. Many days passed before my mother finally asked me if I could see anything strange in the idol. We were amazed to find out that we were both seeing the same things. Finding it very strange, we decided to ask Guruji about it in our next trip. "Guruji, the Shiva idols in our room seem to come alive and breathe each time we pray to them. Is it our imagination?" asked Mom. "These are blessings. Don't stop here. You must go beyond this. Go back and do away with the idols. Leave them in some temple," said Guruji. On another occasion, one of Guruji's pictures in our room started to suddenly glow at night. It caught our attention, and as we looked at it, we were given the divine darshans of all the 10 Sikh gurus. One by one, they kept coming onto the picture like a TV screen. My mother and I again thought we may be imagining all this, so we called my grandfather into the room and just casually asked him if he could see anything. To our surprise, he saw the exact same thing. None of the faces matched the pictures we see. Guru Gobind Singh Ji was recognizable due to his kalgi, but he is not big built as we imagine him to be. He is dark complexioned and about 5'8" tall. Guru Nanak Dev Ji we recognized due to his white beard and straight turban. Guru Har Gobind Ji seemed to have been tall and big built. The next day, someone in Guruji Sangat called saying, "We were sitting with Guruji last night, and Guruji mentioned that your entire family has been given the divine darshans of all the 10 Sikh Gurus. Is it true?" Before we could say anything, he further added, "Guruji has given us instructions to come see the room where you were given the darshans." This confirmed what we had seen the night before. On my first visit to the Bara Mandir at Bhatti Mines, I had clicked a photograph of the Shiva idol on the fountain. This photograph was one among the many I had put up in my room. One day, my mother and I were generally talking about the world being a man's world and that Lord Shiva is partial towards men. We need to protest and appeal to Parvati ji, consort of Lord Shiva. Maybe she will have a soft heart for women and their endless problems. I had barely mentioned these words when the photograph of Lord Shiva seemed to smile. His image blurred, and in his place, my mother and I saw the image of a lady. We presumed it to be Parvati ji, as she was in a sari and wore ornaments. We were shocked at what we had just seen, and since we were seeing a lot of things that were strange, we decided to keep quiet about it till Guruji confirmed what we saw. Within a few days, we managed to take a trip to Guruji. He was in his room when we entered the temple, and as we sat down, Guruji's caretaker came to us saying we were wanted inside. Just as my mother opened the door of his room, Guruji laughed and said, "So, did Parvati ji finally give you darshans that day?" We put our heads down and were ashamed of our foolish conversation that day. Guruji laughed and hugged us both. Chapter 7. Guruji starts to show his presence in our room. Each time I would go to Guruji, he would say something to me like, "Last night you got up twice to go to the toilet," or "This afternoon you had two chapatis," or things like, "Sukhianti, before coming to me, you wanted to color your hair, but since there was no color at home, you first went to the market and bought one, colored your hair, and then came." We would all wonder how he knew. Not only that, then when you left your house, Gil uncle, my grandfather, forgot his watch, so you turned back from the Sector 36 roundabout and went back. "Isn't that right?" asked Guruji. "Yes, Guruji, this is exactly what happened," my mother answered. I would often think as to how he knew all the minute details, but never got around to asking him. One morning, Guruji called up home and told us all to chant 11 malas of a particular part. He told us not to use the prayer beads, but to use 11 almonds to keep track of the number of malas done and to use 108 black grams as beads instead. This part was to be done at 2 a.m. every morning for a few months. Needless to say, I found the part extremely difficult to pronounce and many times would fall off to sleep in the middle of my chanting, only to be woken up and told by mom to redo everything. Every morning before starting my prayers, I would make sure to tell Guruji never to give me such a tongue twister again. On one such day, just as I was about to fall off to sleep again, I heard and felt someone pull my blanket and fold it neatly at my feet. I suddenly woke up, thinking my mother was trying to wake me up, but mom was sitting far away from me with her eyes closed, deep in meditation. Who could have possibly done that? I was confused, scared, and totally awake. An hour later, when I was concentrating on my prayers with my eyes closed, I again heard my almonds make a noise. I opened my eyes to see that all my almonds that were earlier scattered all over the bed were now neatly kept in a pile in front of me. I again looked at Mom, but she was sitting far away and could not have done this. I told my mother of the two incidences that took place with me that morning, only to be told that many times during her prayers too, she had heard Guruji behind her coughing or clearing his throat, and when she would turn around, she couldn't see anything. I was convinced it was Guruji in our room that night. After completing the part, we were told to visit Guruji. That evening, we reached late and Guruji told us to stay for a few days. The next morning, we were surprised to see Guruji's driver knock at our guest house room door. Guruji has sent his car for you and wants you to join him for langar. I have instructions to take you and Sukhi auntie in Guruji's car and have been told to tell Gil uncle to follow in his car. We must leave now, he said. I was super excited to travel in Guruji's car. The car was full of his fragrance and the experience was divine. Guruji was waiting for us at a disciple's house. As soon as we touched his feet and sat around him, he told my mom, Sukhi auntie, every morning when you said your prayers, I used to be present. Very foolishly, I asked again just to confirm, Guruji, did you actually come to us all these days? He smiled and said, Yes, weren't you the one who kept cribbing about the part to be a tongue twister? I got my answer, but I needed more proof. Reading my thoughts, he added, Go back home and check at the moment you have white bed sheets with blue flowers on them. He was right, of course, and I was rather ashamed of myself for doubting him. Many times over the years, we have felt Guruji's presence in our room and still do. Although Guruji has physically never been to our new flat, he told me every little detail about the place and even mentioned that I have a very beautiful dressing table. Chapter 8. How Guruji blessed us with a new flat. Just before my grandfather was to pass away, Guruji started telling my grandfather to look for a house for Mom and me, since we were at that time living with him. Gil साहब, सुखी नो कर दे के जाना है. Gil uncle, you have to buy a house for Sukhi. My grandfather's house was willed to my uncle, and Mom had some property on her name in Sangrur, Punjab. Since that was not a suitable place for us to live, Guruji insisted we sell that and pick up a house in Chandigarh. He would tell us to go all over and find something we liked. There was one house in Panchkula and we were getting it very cheap, so we consulted Guruji. After some thought, Guruji said, "Nahi, flat laके दो, घर safe नहीं होगा." No, a house will not be safe for them. Look for a flat. In those days, there weren't too many flats in Chandigarh, and the ones that were either beyond our budget or in a locality that we didn't feel comfortable moving into. The whole exercise went on for months, and finally I gave up as I just couldn't find anything. One day, our neighbor came running to our house saying, Your Guruji is on the line. He has called up from Delhi. Your landline is dead. Come soon, he's on hold. We were quite taken aback because we ourselves didn't know the landline number of our neighbors. We rushed to talk to him over the phone and he seemed to be upset with us. पैसे नाल ले जाने ने फ्लैट क्यों नहीं लभदे हो ਜਦੋਂ मैं कह ਰਿਹਾ ਹਾਂ ਹੁਣੇ ਜਾਓ ਤੇ flat final ਕਰੋ. Why are you not looking for a flat? Go now and finalize something fast. We understood that there is some reason behind it, and so Mom and I took off looking for a flat. There was a new area coming up within Chandigarh that had beautiful flats, and the area too seemed very peaceful. Many times in the past I had stopped to ask about the prices, but they were just too steep and out of my budget. I told my mother I would like to visit that area again as it's the only place I like. I thought I'd pick up a smaller one and not the one that I actually liked. Just as I entered the area, my eyes fell on a property dealer's signboard that was half covered with paint. One could barely read it. I stopped and went in to ask him if he could show me one of the smaller flats if available. He suddenly got up and said, "Ma'am, I have just the flat for you." I insisted on seeing a smaller one due to budget constraints, but he was adamant to show me one of the bigger ones that I liked. He told me it was a distress sale and the army officer to whom it was allotted to was in a hurry to sell as he was booked on a flight to the US and he wanted the deal wrapped up as soon as possible. The price he quoted was still above my budget but below the current market price, so we called Guruji to ask him. Guruji insisted on buying it immediately as he said the prices would soon go up 10 times in the coming days. The token money was given on that same day, and as per Guruji's instructions, the deal was done within a few days. Today, the price of these flats is more than 10 times the price I had to pay then. Had Guruji not put, had Guruji not pushed us and directed us to the property dealer that day, the opportunity would have been lost. When we took the keys to Guruji for his blessings, he held them in his hands and said, "मुबारक हो सुखी आंटी, तेरा घर बन गया, फ्लैट बहुत सोना है." Congratulations, you now have a home. It's a beautiful flat. We thanked him and he further asked, "पूरे पैसे देते कि कुछ रहंदा है?" Have you made the complete payment or is there something still left to be paid? We told him that we still owe the housing board 2 lakhs to make the property freehold. We told him since the flat was a bit over our budget, we'll get it done as soon as my grandfather can arrange it. ਫਿਕਰ ਨਾ ਕਰੋ, ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਸੰਗਰੂਰ ਦੇ ਲੈਂਡ 'ਤੇ ਫੇਰਾ ਪਾ ਆਇਆ ਹਾਂ, ਉਹ ਲੈਂਡ ਵਿਕ ਜਾਏਗੀ ਜਲਦੀ. He told us not to worry and that he had blessed our land in Sangrur and it will soon get sold and the money will be taken care of. Just as we got back from Delhi and as our car drove into the driveway, we saw 2 men sitting in the courtyard. They were waiting to see my grandfather and were wanting to buy the piece of land Guruji was talking about. They were carrying with them rupees 2 lakh as token money. All thanks to Guruji, the property was paid for in full. We were then instructed to lock it and forget about it till his next instructions. Within 2 months, my grandfather fell ill and passed away. After his demise, we were told to vacate my grandfather's house immediately. Somehow, we were allowed to stay a few months with the condition that we would move as soon as we got the flat in order. It dawned on me it dawned on me then that this was why Guruji was in such a hurry for us to buy a flat. Buying anything after my grandfather's death would have been impossible. Once the flat was ready to move into, we went to Delhi to meet Guruji. He told us, "ਕੋਈ ਪਾਠ ਕਰਨ ਦੀ ਲੋੜ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ, ਮੇਰੀ ਮਾਲਾ ਲੈ ਜਾ ਤੇ ਪਾਣੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਾ ਕੇ ਪੂਰੇ ਘਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਛਿੱਟਾ ਮਾਰ ਦੇ ਔਰ ਸ਼ਿਫਟ ਕਰ ਜਾਓ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਤੇ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਫਲੈਟ ਸਭ ਬਲੈਸਡ ਹੈ." He lifted a garland from his feet and gave it to Mom. He said there was no need to get any prayers done before or after moving into the flat. Just dip the garland in water and sprinkle that water in every corner of the flat and move in. You and your flat are fully blessed. We did exactly that and moved in. The vibrations of the flat are very happy and positive. We feel so blessed to have been given this flat as prashad from Guruji. There is no way we could have managed to buy this without his help. Even today, sometimes my mother sees Guruji walking around in the new flat. One day, during the time of Aishwarya Rai's wedding, the actress, coverage on TV, I was drooling over the saris and jewelry they were displaying. The remote of the TV was far from my reach, and suddenly the channel changed on its own. The TV was now playing a spiritual channel where the Sikh priest is explaining a line from the Gurbani. It said, दूसरों की चोपड़ी रोटी देख के दिल न ललचा, अपनी रूखी सूखी खा के खुश रह. Meaning, don't look at what all others have. Be content and happy with what you have. That was a lesson learned. Guruji insisted on us listening to Punjabi songs and said they will make us feel happy and positive whenever we felt sad. Over the years, we had forgotten his vachans, and when we lost my father, Mom and I used to remain very upset. Every morning, my mother plays shabads on a wireless speaker. One day, when we were both exceptionally low, we suddenly heard Punjabi songs being played on the speaker instead of the shabads. The songs that day were all those which were played at Guruji's temple, happy jazzy numbers. On examining the speaker, I saw that in order to change the mode from USB to FM, one really had to use force as the switch was pretty small and tight. It certainly could not have happened on its own. Guruji had once made the following vachans to my mother. सुखी आंटी तू जदों भी पाठ करेंगी मैं तेरे कोल बैठा होऊंगा. Meaning, Sukhi auntie, whenever you sit on your prayers and meditation, I am sitting with you. A lot of times, when mom gets up to do her morning prayers, she hears a particular tile on the floor make a noise as if someone has stepped on a loose tile. No tile is loose in that room, and yet each time she sits on her meditation, she hears this sound as if trying to tell her that he has come. I remember seeing a program on the BBC where, in a forest fire, a complete hill got burnt down except a house that remained untouched by the fire and was still spotlessly white. The reporters interviewed the owner, who said he had his house blessed by a monk in whom he had great faith. I too live with this faith that no matter what situations may develop in the future, Guruji will keep our little flat safe and protected. Chapter 9. Other Darshans. Jin prab dhyaaya tin sukh paya, vat bhage darshan paya. Those who meditate on God find peace. By great good fortune, the darshan is obtained. Over the years that I have spent with Guruji, I noticed that he had the power to give darshans to his Sangat anywhere, anytime, and in any form they desired. How does he do that? How can he ask God to come to his disciple and give darshans? Does he have that much of an authority? Obviously so, but then who is he? These were the many questions that ran through my mind ever since I heard the Sangat speak of Guruji giving them darshans. I tried to understand his position in the divine cosmos. Who can give life? Who can control death? Who can control nature? Who can who can cure ailments such as cancer? Try asking yourselves these questions, and you, like myself, will come up with just one answer: God, or the Supreme Power Himself. Getting a darshan is the most holy of all holy experiences. Many people in Guruji's Sangat have been blessed by the same. I remember talking to a Sikh gentleman who narrated his experience to me. He heard about Guruji from someone he knew and came to seek his blessings. On seeing Guruji, he wasn't very happy to know that Guruji was bald and not a Sikh. Disappointed, he went back home only to be woken up by Guruji at night, lying down on a bed beside him. Badly shaken and scared, he sat up and Guruji changed his appearance to that of Guru Gobind Singh Ji. Addressing the gentleman by his name, Guruji said, "You came back disappointed because you saw I was bald?" Feeling rather shameful of his assumptions, he fell at Guruji's feet and thus became a disciple and visited Guruji often. Another spiritual gentleman, Sant Maharaj, whom I have known for many years, visited Guruji along with his elder brother. Guruji called them both inside and filled up his double bed with diamond sets. He asked the elder brother to pick up any one that he fancied. He joined his hands and begged Guruji not to put him in the web of Maya, materialism. Guruji then asked the younger brother, who was very spiritual, "What do you want?" asked Guruji. "Guruji, please give me the divine darshans of Guru Nanak Dev Ji." He replied. Guruji smiled and walked out of the room. After about 3 months, the younger brother was in meditation in his prayer room that was locked from inside. Guruji called out to him and said, "Wake up. You wanted darshans of Guru Nanak, and now the time has come." Guruji disappeared, and for about 45 minutes, Sant Maharaj Ji had darshans of Guru Nanak Dev Ji. Later on, he was blessed with the darshans of all the 10 Sikh Gurus, Mira Ji and Kabir Ji. Many people in the Sangat have seen Guruji in the form of Shivji. A friend of mine, sitting next to me in the temple, suddenly started crying. She got up and ran out as if not being able to see Guruji. It seemed very strange to me, as I had never witnessed anything like this before. On being asked what is causing her to cry like this, all she could say was that she couldn't look at Guruji's eyes. "His eyes are shining so bright that it's blinding me. I can't see Guruji sitting on the asan, instead I see Shivji," she said. I tried to calm her down, and each time I took her inside to sit among the Sangat, she would start to cry again. Guruji called me and told me to take her to his room and calm her down. "Guruji, what is wrong with her?" I asked. "I have given her the divine darshan of Shivji, but she is unable to bear it. Not everyone can handle being given a darshan. People can even go mad." This is when I realized that it's easy for Guruji to give darshans, but it's not easy for us humans to bear the impact of such an experience. One day, while sitting with Guruji, he told me, "I have blessed your grandfather with the darshans of Shivji. Next is your turn." Needless to say, I was on top of the world. My grandfather was a saintly man and never told anyone about his spiritual experiences. After probing him for 2 long days, he finally admitted to having had the darshans, and all he said was that it was an amazing experience that cannot be explained in words. Every day after visiting Guruji, I would go home hoping to have Shivji's darshans. I would clean up my room, which otherwise never got cleaned, thinking Shivji would probably not like coming to a messy room like mine. I made sure to wear decent night dresses every night, but still I never had Shivji's darshans for almost a year. One night, when I had totally forgotten about Guruji's promise to me, I finally had Shivji's darshans. It was an amazing experience, to say the least, and I understood what my grandfather meant when he said, "It can't be expressed in words." In Delhi, while sitting next to Guruji's asan, I suddenly felt a bit dizzy. I blinked a few times and looked up at Guruji, and what I saw was something that was totally out of the world. Since I was sitting on the right hand side of Guruji, I could only see his side profile. On his face, I saw a big, beautiful golden eye with thick, long eyelashes. As I looked in awe, Guruji smiled at me, and soon everything was back to normal. I was hesitant in telling anyone of what I saw, as again I wanted to be sure it wasn't my imagination. Guruji must have sensed my doubt, for as soon as I reached back home to Chandigarh, someone came over and gave me the Narad Puran to read. In the first few pages, the Narad Puran describes Shivji as the one with big, beautiful golden eyes. I got my answer. Apart from giving physical darshans to his Sangat, he also gave darshans on his body. The body of a Mahapurush is not ordinary. Many times a Shivling and a Nag have been sighted on Guruji's forehead by many in the Sangat. While massaging his feet, my mother has seen lions in an embossed form on his feet and many faces with eyes on his legs. On being asked why she sees lions on his body so often, Guruji would tell my mother that a lion is a symbol of Shiv. There were times when faces would develop on all 10 fingertips of my mother's hands. She again asked Guruji why she was seeing such things on her hands, and he would smile and tell her that they were all the different roops, faces of Shivji. I too was blessed with the darshans of Shirdi Wale Sai Baba on Guruji's tongue. Once on the day of Shivratri, I was unable to visit Guruji in Delhi, so my mother and I decided to keep a fast instead. We went to the market to buy some fruit along with my grandfather. Just as we parked our car in the parking lot, a sadhu knocks on the window where my grandfather was sitting. He pointed towards a jeep and said that a Mahapurush is calling you. As we turned to look back, we saw a blue jeep with another sadhu sitting in it, sipping a glass of milk. The jeep must have just materialized because there was no vehicle in the parking lot when we came, and there is no way a diesel vehicle could come behind us without us hearing it. And what's more, we were parked at the only entrance to that market area. My grandfather got down and walked up to the jeep while I sat in the car trying to observe the Mahapurush's mannerism. Although the Mahapurush looked nothing like Guruji, yet there was something about him that attracted me towards him. He was dark in complexion, had long hair, and was dressed in a saffron robe. I noticed that the way he drank his milk was very much like Guruji had his, with small sips. He spoke to my grandfather but kept looking towards us, and I was convinced it was Guruji. I noticed the jeep had Om Namah Shivaya written on it, and the number of the jeep came to a total of 7. Somehow I was convinced it was Guruji and decided to ask him later when I went to Delhi. About a month later, while sitting with Guruji, I asked him if he was the one who gave us darshans on Shivratri day, making sure I didn't give too many details. To my surprise, he said, "Yes, I came in a blue jeep." That day, I realized that my Guru can come to me in any form, and I may not be able to recognize him the next time. Guruji, God can come God can come to us in any form, even as a beggar. We are not always polite to beggars. Please tell us how we can save ourselves from making a mistake of shunning away God if He ever comes to us in such a form. I asked Guruji, feeling ashamed of the number of times I had been rude to beggars. Guruji, ever so understandingly, replied, "कुछ दे नहीं सकदे ਤਾਂ ਹੱਥ ਜੋੜ ਕੇ ਮਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਹਿ ਦੋ ਕਿ ਮਾफ़ ਕਰੋ ਜੇ ਉਹ ਅਸਲੀ ਸੰਤ ਹੋਵੇਗਾ ਤਾਂ ਸਮਝ ਜਾਏਗਾ." If you can't give anything to a beggar, don't be rude. Just fold your hands and say, "Please forgive me." And if it's a saint or God in a beggar's disguise, he will understand. He further added, "गुप्त दान दिया करो, इस तरह दान दिया दो कि राइट हैंड को पता ना चले कि लेफ्ट हाथ ने क्या दिया है। हमेशा लेफ्ट हैंड से दान दो क्योंकि लेफ्ट हैंड खुला दान करता है। राइट हैंड हमेशा सोचेगा कि मैं कुछ वापस रख लूँ। गुप्त दान और गुप्त पाठ से गर्भ जूनी से मुक्ति मिल जाती है। You must indulge in charity, but charity must be done in such a way that your right hand does not know what your left hand has given. Always give with your left hand, as it will give freely. Your right hand will always want to hold some things back," he said. Charity and prayers done on the quiet, without anyone knowing, is the only way to liberate your soul from the cycle of life and death. "Guruji, what else can we do to attain moksha?" I asked. "Help the needy, feed the hungry, and read the Shiv Puran. This is the easiest way to attain liberation in this Kali Yuga." जय गुरु जी। आज की रीडिंग बस यहीं तक। कल फिर अगले चैप्टर से शुरू करेंगे। उम्मीद करती हूँ आप सबको बहुत अच्छा लगा। सुखमनी आंटी का भी फिर से शुक्राना अपनी इतने ब्यूटीफुल एक्सपीरियंसेस को हमारे साथ शेयर करने के लिए। जय गुरु जी।